Hello and welcome to the Coors Event Center. I am Matt Smith for 5280 Sports Network. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, the regular season has finally come to an end, as on senior night, the Colorado Buffaloes upended the California Golden Bears 54-46 in a grind-em-out dogfight of a game in which it was kind of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde compared to Thursday against Stanford when Colorado scored 91 points and 25 assists, 6 turnovers. The offensive numbers were sparkling. And tonight it was pretty much the polar opposite. Colorado was held to 25% from the field in the first half and bounced back, shot 47% from the field in the second half, but the offensive production from the Buffaloes, especially in the early goings of this game, really left a lot to be desired. The ball movement and player movement that we talked about at length on Thursday night certainly was not here or anywhere close to where it was against Stanford, but the Buffaloes found a way to win. And that is the theme of essentially this game and the latter half of this conference season for Colorado, who started out 0-7 in conference, as everyone knows, but have bounced back, have won 8 out of their last 11, and have jockeyed themselves into better position, certainly, for the Pac-12 tournament coming up next week. But tonight, it was an impressive performance of, obviously, senior night. Josh Fortune, Derrick White, Wesley Gordon, and Xavier Johnson, their final game here in the Coors Event Center. XJ and Derrick certainly gave the fans something to remember them by, no question about it. Josh Fortune tonight, not a great game from him. Wes Gordon actually scoreless on his senior night on 0 of 1 shots, but the reason for that, and the reason for the slow start in the first half, certainly for Colorado, was foul trouble. Wesley Gordon had 2 fouls by the time there was 18 minutes left on the clock in the first half. So just 2 minutes into the game, Wes Gordon out with 2 fouls. Then 2 minutes later, Torrey Miller out with 2 fouls. And then eventually, a few minutes later, Lucas Seward would pick up 2 fouls. So the Buffalo's front court was run buckshot by this officiating crew tonight. But you got to credit this team for hanging around. Colorado only trailed by 3 at halftime, and without Wes Gordon, without Torrey Miller, especially when you're dealing with a team in Cal who, with Cameron Rooks and Kingsley Okoro with 2 7-footers, that makes things really tough to get in the paint and score on the interior, especially when you're playing small. The Buffaloes continued to try and get inside. I believe both teams in this game both finished with 16 points in the paint apiece. It was really a dogfight. The defense was good tonight from Colorado. Now, Cal has been struggling offensively, especially the other night against Utah, and they did again tonight. The Buffs held Jabari Bird 3 of 8 from the field, Charlie Moore 0 of 6, Ivan Rabb 4 of 11. Cal not very efficient offensively. In fact, this would be, as far as an opponent's field goal percentage goes, this would probably be the best defensive game, I think, this season, from Colorado. They held Cal to, 25% from the field and under 25% from the 3-point line. It was an impressive defensive performance. If they can play like they did tonight defensively and play like they did on Thursday night offensively, then certainly they can make some noise next week in the Pac-12 tournament. But like I said, the foul trouble contributed heavily to the slow start from Colorado. They were out-rebounded by Cal by 9 in the first half. Stepped up. George King, who actually only finished with 1 rebound at the end of the first half, stepped up that rebounding effort entirely in the second half, finishes with 9 rebounds, had 8 in the second half. And Colorado, it was really a back and forth game there in the second half. It was close, and I don't think the Buffs pulled away until Dom Collier hit a 3 with about 2.5 minutes left in this one to finally give them a 2-possession lead. This one was really down to the wire, and then of course the Buffaloes were hanging there. I believe they were up 49-43 with under a minute left. The play had completely broken down. Derrick White got the ball. He was trapped on the right low block, and I believe the ball was poked away. He goes, recollects it on the wing, and knocks down an ISO triple right in front of the bench that is a great lasting memory to leave fans here at the Coors Event Center. Derrick White, who I actually asked Tad Boyle after the game in the post-game press conference if Derrick White deserves to make Pac-12 all first-team defense. Certainly all first-team in general would be tough with Markelle Fultz and Lonzo Ball. You got to imagine that goes to Lonzo Ball. But the defense is really the area in his game that at the beginning of this year, we weren't sure if he was going to be able to compete really at an elite level in D1 basketball, but he really has. I mean, Derrick another key block down the stretch. He's had maybe 5 or 6 of those so far this season. He has really proved to be a special one-year player. Of course, Tad Boyle saying again after the game that he wishes he wasn't graduating so he could have a chance to continue coaching Derrick, and he's certainly going to take every opportunity and advantage of the rest that he has of this season. Of course, the Buffs will play next Wednesday, March 8th. The seed has yet to be determined in the Pac-12 tournament, and the opponent has yet to be determined. There are still some games going on right now, but early indications would be that Colorado would be the 7th seed if Arizona State loses at home to Arizona, and they were actually only trailing by 1 at halftime. We'll see how that plays out. You got to think Arizona will probably come back and take that one down. So if that's the case, and Colorado ends up with the 7th seed, they get put right into the gauntlet. I mean, things do not get any easier from here on out. Normally, or at least sometimes, if you get in the Pac-12 tournament, you have a decent first round game and then maybe a chance to make some noise in the second round. But barring a really good effort, we would have to see something a la the Oregon game, a la the Xavier game out of these guys if they wanted to win in the quarterfinals, assuming they get there. Remember now, a Colorado basketball team has not lost on the first day of the Pac-12 tournament since joining the conference. So there's a little bit at stake there for Colorado. Certainly this coaching staff wants to make sure that that doesn't happen and they can find a way to get into the quarterfinals. But if they do get into that 7-10 game, what you have to understand is that this is probably the best the Pac-12 has been at the top in years. You've got Arizona, Oregon, and UCLA, who are all legitimate top 10 teams, and you would have to play all of them, starting with most likely Arizona in the quarterfinals, then going on to UCLA, and then having to try and find a way to beat Oregon, assuming that's how it would go. But tonight it was a good way to wrap up this regular season. You've got to find ways to win basketball games if you want to win in March. It doesn't always have to be pretty. It doesn't always have to be easy. It's certainly a grind. And tonight the Buffaloes came out on top, sent the seniors off on a positive note. Colorado finishes off the regular season 18-13 overall, 8-10 in conference, which I think if you told anybody they'd finish 8-10 in conference after starting 0-7, they would have taken that, certainly. But it's been an interesting year for Colorado basketball. It's not over yet. As far as postseason implications go, an NCAA tournament would be impossible outside of winning the Pac-12 tournament, which if they are the 7th seed, that would seem to be an extremely daunting challenge. But the NIT, they have to win that 7-10 game. Now, an interesting note about the Pac-12 tournament, it's being held at the T-Mobile Arena this year in Las Vegas. It's actually the first year that the Pac-12 tournament's going to be held at the T-Mobile Arena. Of course, it was at the MGM Grand for the last, I think, 5 or 6 years now. And so a bigger environment, and certainly if Colorado has to play Arizona in the second round, assuming they get there, looking ahead, of course, but assuming they get there, then the only real reason that you kind of move the MGM Grand to the T-Mobile Arena is you want more exposure, more fans, and the one school that really needs more fans is the one you might see in the second round in Arizona. That's certain. It's McHale Northwest in Vegas. Doesn't matter if it's at the MGM or at T-Mobile Arena, those fans show up, and they show up like crazy. There's a huge construction convention, I believe, going on in Las Vegas right now, and I think a NASCAR race, the Mountain West Conference Tournament. Hotels are very expensive right now. If you're thinking about making that last-minute trip out there, you might want to stay off the strip just a little bit and find a way to make it in for the games. Just a recommendation. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Colorado finishes their regular season on a high note here. I am Matt Smith from the Coors Event Center. It has been a pleasure covering Colorado basketball all season long, despite maybe not having as good of a year as some would hope. And I will be in Vegas, of course, next week at the Pac-12 tournament from the New York T-Mobile Arena. Look forward to providing you all sorts of coverage on that one. Follow me on Twitter at RealMattSmith. That's Matt with 1 T, to stay up to date with all of our coverage from 5280 Sports Network in Las Vegas. Check us out online at 5280sportsnetwork.com or at 5280sportsnet on Twitter. Until next time, thanks for joining us.